So that's quite the title, obviously. And you know, it's totally fine if that title doesn't make sense to you at this point. And I'm hoping that some of you will trip over the word eSports. I just wanted to do a quick show of hands. Who has heard of the word of eSports? Okay, quite a bit. Who has played eSports? Okay. Who has absolutely no idea what eSports are? Okay, right, okay. So, eSports are video games that are played competitively by professionals and, just like traditional sports, watched by really large audiences. And the background image here that you can see is an eSports arena. It's actually the Birmingham NEC arena, full with 20,000 eSports fans. And on that stage that is lit, you would have people playing video games against each other. And on these screens, you see what's happening in the virtual world. And so I've put that sort of demon-like creature there in the foreground because a lot of the time people who first hear eSports have this conception that that's digital version of real sports like football, right? And that's certainly true. You've heard Guardian articles about major football clubs acquiring eSports players to play the virtual football game. But actually by far the more popular titles are things like virtual card games or fantasy games with swords and magic, right? So you need to know that for the rest of this to make sense. And the way that eSports is broadcast at the moment is very much like traditional sports. So on the left side, you've got football, so you have a view on the pitch, you've got a commentary that explains to you what's going on, and then pre and post game, you've got a panel of experts and pundits that break down the match. And on the right, you see an eSports called Dota 2. So you have a virtual camera. You still look down on the virtual arena, on the virtual pitch. You have some maybe picture-in-picture of the actual players, the physical players that actually control the in-game characters. And then you have the post-game narrative. And sort of eSports have experienced this meteoric rise over the last 2 decades. And I'd like to show you 2 clips. One from 2000, which depicts one of the first eSports events, and then afterwards one how eSports looks today. Okay. Now this is 2019.
11 years, this, one of the biggest esports events in the world, has toured the planet.
Yes or no?
These are those moments I don't think anybody on that stage is going to forget. 5 different nationalities.
We're getting 13,000 fans screaming their heads off here in an arena, and just we're all feeling it together, right? You just cannot help but ride that energy wave that just goes pounding through Lanxess every time.
I think that's enough of a sample. So these clips are courtesy of ESL, which is a very close industry partner of York, and I'll mention them later. But you know, you can see, so eSports take a lot of the traditional TV broadcast, but it's really at the convergence of a very exciting new genre. So it takes in from video games, telling stories across physical spaces and virtual spaces. And it's also really it's very integrated with social media. So the audience that we're dealing with are really, really, truly the audience of the future. So they're very young audiences. In 2019, 445 million people watched eSports around the globe. And these are young audiences, they're tech-savvy, and actually, contrary to intuition, they're actually increasingly diverse, better than many traditional sports, so 30%, for instance, of viewers now are female. But they don't longer want to just sit there and passively consume. They're Generation Z, they're millennials, they want to interact and experience their sports in a different way. And so, you know, I've been leading the eSports research group at the Digital Creativity Lab since 2016. And then 2 years ago, the government decided to put out a challenge as part of their industrial strategy. And that was, how can new immersive technology, so virtual reality and augmented reality, change the way that audience in the future experience live sports entertainment or entertainment in general. And so we thought this is absolutely brilliant because we've got the audience of the future here right now on our doorstep. And so we're very thrilled that we've won as part of this program, a flagship project in 4 categories was awarded. And we are the bottom right. We got the one for sports entertainment. But we are super proud to be in the company of some of the UK's biggest cultural institutions. So Ardman, Wallace and Gromit won the Moving Image category. Natural History Museum and Science Museum won the Visitor Experience category. Royal Shakespeare Company Performance. And then it's us with ESL. And you know, ESL is a fantastic company, globally operating with a branch in the UK. They alone cater for half of the esports audience worldwide. So they're a fantastic industry partner. And we call this project Weavr. It's quite cryptic. It's commercially, on the commercial side, is led by ESL. From the research side, it's led by us here at York. And we're working with a bunch of really fantastic companies. Just as an example, Doc 10 are in Manchester Media City. They produce The Voice and all of BBC's and ITV's shows. So fantastic consortium. And Weavr sets out a vision. And I want to explain that vision to you with a traditional sport analogy to make it more accessible. So imagine an experience of live sports in which you can teleport from your living room into the stadium, fly around the pitch, and assume your favorite player's perspective. Imagine the experience seamlessly blending virtual and physical worlds, stretching across coffee tables, walls, TV screens, and mobile devices. Imagine commentary that is tailored to your needs and interests, visualizations and statistics that give you personalized insights into strategy and performance that you never had before. Imagine having a coach next to you who explains to you how you could improve your own gameplay if you're a football player. And imagine doing all of this without boundaries, geographic boundaries, with people from all around the world. And it's safe to say that this kind of vision is it's impossible to produce with current production techniques. Imagine now we not only have to produce one story for 1 million people, we have to produce 1 million stories. And not just that, we have to do it in real time. So as the unpredictable action in the games unfold. And the grand challenge behind this, and one of the specialties we bring to the table here at York, is AI and machine learning in the context of digital creativity. So when you talk about AI, immediately you have to talk about data. So what really sets esports apart from traditional sports is that they take place in a virtual world. So it's extremely data rich. So every match that is played, we have the exact data of how the athletes move, the in-game character move, every muscle movement. It's analogous to having an entire data set about football match of all the movements of the players. And so we don't only have video capture, we have that raw data capture. And when you have the data about these matches, and bear in mind there's millions of matches played every day in esports, AI can do some incredibly new things, and we can actually make this vision happen in the here and now, and more specifically over the next year. So imagine if I told you that Ronaldo has run 5.4 miles in the first half of a match. So that alone doesn't mean a lot, but what we've basically created is a data middleware that quote-unquote watches millions of previous matches, and then for any given live game tells us the special things that happen, the highlights, the extraordinary performances. And that's a tool that we use to fuel some of these new experiences. This sounds very techy, but in fact, what really makes us unique here around video games and artificial intelligence in York is that we have a really broad spectrum of disciplines. So from AI to data-driven storytelling, visualization, analytics, but we also interact with sociology, psychology, and learning science. and user experience design. So we'll really look at the holistic way of translating this data into meaningful stories that means something to people. All right, so this is a quick outtake of one of the games that we work with. It's extremely complex. There's tons of things happening, and you would be, I will tell you that even seasoned and experienced viewers only catch a small part of what the action actually is, right? So the challenge is to make the complexity, to break down the complexity and make it more meaningful to people. And in sports, this is done with graphics such as this. So you have experts that annotate formations, that highlight players, and that's also based on some very basic data. Now, with the data that I've described to you, we can do basically that 100-fold, right? We can automate this process. We can let AI detect these special moments. And I want to show you a few videos of products we've produced in the project as a consortium that use York's, we call it narrative engine, to engage the audience. You don't have to understand the actual content, obviously, but imagine you're watching a live game. It's happening right now. You're either in the arena or you're at home. You can see the players running around the arena in real time. So this provides you with a second screen experience. Our AI middleware generates these stories, these extraordinary moments. So you can see, this person is doing really well. And depending on who you are, these stories will be different. So if you're a novice, it will be more high-level items. If you're very much a fan and you're interested in one specific player, you get more information there. We also have more. We have overlays and statistics embedded in this. For virtual reality, we have this, imagine teleporting into sort of a war room-like experience. So you see the virtual arena laid out in front of you. You can move around. You can see it from different perspectives. You get the different stories and the highlights. And this particular one also allows you to teleport then in the actual physical arena. So if you're at home, you can then teleport. It doesn't come across quite as well, but if you're in VR, you can essentially stand on the stage on that eSports event, look out like I'm looking out on you now, onto the audience, and see the professionals perform. It's a really immersive experience. Now, I think, eSports in their own right are a very valid target for research. The UK has the world's 5th largest video game market. So economically and culturally, eSports in the UK and globally are very, very meaningful. But the one thing that excites us is essentially we're tackling a challenge that's very, very much a critical one for the 21st century. We're trying to translate very complex data using AI and human elements of creativity into stories that appeal to and are meaningful to non-expert audiences, to people who are not actually data scientists, who don't know data analysis. And we really see eSports as a lens to look at how we can make complex data palatable and meaningful and engaging in all sorts of other areas. So as an example, I know as a parent, we always cringe a little bit when we think about kids in video games, but they play it. We'll get over it. They will do it, and they won't stop. And but what we're realizing is that data and the tools that we have created that use AI to break down complexity. Now, it won't surprise you maybe now at the end of this talk that the same data that we're using for the professional games that I've just shown you also exists for any amateur or friendly match. So in Dota, in this particular eSports, over 1.2 million matches are recorded every day, okay? So, and we can have the kids who play these games can access this data as well. So we're starting a collaboration with this National STEM Learning Center here on campus and other educators to leverage that passion that people have and that particularly the young learners have for video games. We're trying to take some of that out and make them acquire the equivalent of physical fitness, which is mental fitness. So in traditional sports, you go out on the pitch, you have a benefit, a residual benefit that transfers into your life. In eSports, we think there's a very high potential to foster mental fitness, critical thinking, data literacy, and evidence-based reasoning. And with that, I want to conclude, and thank you very much.